Good evening, and welcome to Connecting Communities, a show about extraordinary people doing extraordinary things in our communities. I'm Dr. Robert Sains, and it is with great pleasure that I take this opportunity to introduce this segment of Connecting Communities. Tonight, Connecting Communities features a special presentation, Love, Theater, and Healing, a Well Arts Institute performance located in Portland, Oregon. Well Arts Institute is a nonprofit agency whose mission is to explore, develop, and practice creativity as a means of wellness. They have partnered with many healthcare providers and social service agencies in Portland, including Oregon Health Sciences University, Dornbecker's Children's Hospital, the Veterans Administration Medical Center, the National Multiple Sclerosis Society, and the Terwilliger Plaza Retirement Community, just to name a few. In a few minutes, the director of Well Arts Institute, Kay Liljeholm, will discuss how these partnerships with Well Arts work together to provide writing workshops for people from those communities. Katie is the consummate artistic professional. She is a teacher, a board member, director, and producer, as well as having been a stage manager for the Portland Actors Ensemble. Katie's professional background includes distinct accomplishments such as participation in the Profile Theater Project, 2 boards, and Broadway Rose Theater Company. Katie has also toured as a puppeteer for the nationally award-winning Tears of Joy Theater, which she directed and produced. Tonight, Katie brings with her to Metro East Studios a small group of professional actors who will perform monologues written by several writers who have found healing and wellness through their writings. I introduce to you now Connecting Communities host and executive producer Renee Ducharme Brody and Well Arts Institute's executive and artistic director Katie Liljeholm.
Hi everyone, thank you Dr. Sains for that introduction. Welcome to Love, Theater, and Healing, a Well Arts performance by local professional actors. Let's meet Katie, who will share more about Well Arts, the partner organizations, the Beautiful Minds, and Voices of the Elders programs. Good to see you again, Katie.
Good to see you, Renee. So, Well Arts is a 13-year-old arts and medicine nonprofit, and arts and medicine is a field of professional arts in which artists work with people in healing contexts. And so that can be in local community centers, it can be in hospitals, it can be with different advocacy organizations. As Dr. Sains mentioned, Well Arts is partnered with a number of organizations around Portland, and we do a different program for each. So, for instance, in our Voices of Our Elders program, this is specifically a workshop for anybody over 60, and we started it in 2009 with a National Endowment for the Arts grant. And we started it because part of a healthy aging process is life review, that when you retire, you have 60 or 70 years of memories, and you haven't necessarily had a lot of time to process that, and so it all comes back to you. And narrative provides just this wonderful spine to sort of pick out which details were important and what the meaning of it all was. Our Beautiful Minds workshop is a program with the National Alliance on Mental Illness. A big barrier to finding help for people with mental illness is stigmatization. It's not an illness that we appreciate in our community. It's one that we look down on, that people who have it are wrong and bad. And so people don't come out as having it, and then they don't get treatment. So a lot of the stories that we talk about deal specifically with stigmatization. The monologue that we're about to see actually comes from our reunion writing workshop. So once a year, writers from all of our different workshops, so writers from our cancer workshops and our MS workshop and our veterans workshops, can come together, write again, keep it as part of their healing process, and still reach a community with their stories. And so that's what we're about to see.
And so you would also maybe say that they keep a journal.
Many of our writers do write outside the workshops. In our workshops, we do anything from drop-in classes that happen maybe twice every month to workshops that are maybe once a week for 8 weeks.
I see.
And so in the workshops, I or any of the other facilitators, we present a particular writing tool. So for instance, one session we might talk about characterization and what details the participant needs to give the audience in order for the audience to see a person come alive on stage that isn't actually there or maybe is no longer with us. And so we talk about what those tools are and how to do it, and then we write, and then we share the stories in the workshop. And then I collect the stories. I give people feedback on that, helping them to fine-tune their stories for an audience. And then we bring in the actors to audition. And so the actors audition reading the participants' stories. And then in the rehearsal process, the actors are working with the participants to kind of further hone the stories for performance. And then we do our performances. So all of the writing, in fact, for the performances happen in the workshops.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So is there a layer of emotionality that occurs during these workshops? Is it palatable?
Yeah, anytime you write stories, emotions are usually not terribly far behind. Yeah. And I think one of the things that surprised me most when I started working for Well Arts was just what people are walking around with, that I never considered myself to be a naive person, and I certainly read stories all the time and knew that those came from true experiences. But when I really started asking other people in my community about their stories, I was shocked about what came up, and I thought, well, this really needs to be shared. We should not be naive about each other's lives. We should be a part of each other's lives and understanding what it means to be a human being, and that means listening to each other. So there are a lot of emotions that come up in the stories, and we try to be really respectful and mindful of that for the participants and try to do that in a safe place in the workshops and in the performance. But the performance the stage is a safe and sacred place where it's okay to say and do anything, because that's what a stage is for. You can do things on a stage that you can't do in the grocery store or at your Thanksgiving dinner table.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Do you think that this kind of program that you folks have put together and the response from the community and the participation level and the emotionality that accompanies that, because it is their story, do you think there's a wider platform for that kind of program elsewhere?
Yes, and in fact, there are a vast array of arts and medicine organizations around the country and around the world. The U.S. is actually a little behind. It's far more common in places like England and Australia and even Canada, and it's actually the West Coast is behind the East Coast. There are far more programs that are like ours on the East Coast than on the West Coast, which as a Midwesterner I find fascinating. So yes, there is a platform for this kind of story sharing, and in fact it does happen all over. However, I find that very few people are aware of it, and so I try to reach out to other organizations that are doing work like ours to try and educate our communities collectively about these kinds of opportunities. Because in other cultures, in other lands, this is just a part of daily life in the community. But not so much in ours, and I think we lose something when we don't have a platform, a stage for sharing our stories.
Yes. So we're hoping through connecting communities and producing some of your works here that it will be another level for your performers and for the Institute to be able to share these stories in a wider community and a wider audience.
Yeah, and we are really grateful for that. Thank you so much for giving us this opportunity.
We're so happy to be here to help you do it. It's exciting because I know the value of writing and being able to look at that writing and to say, oh, and maybe get an aha moment and some insight and some realizations, and then
I'd love to put in a plug for the actors, because sometimes I'll get asked by people, well, why don't you have the participants tell their own stories?
Yeah.
Our participants, I couldn't get on stage with a cattle prod. And they're playwrights at heart. But when you see someone else who listens to you so deeply that they represent you on stage and you watch them experiencing the same emotions that you remember experiencing, it's a very powerful way of feeling heard. That at the end of the workshop, almost all of our participants say that working with our actors has been their favorite part of the experience.
Thank you, Katie. That's very helpful for our audience to really understand the depth of the kind of work that you folks are doing.
Thank you.
And so now I'd like to introduce to you Love, Theater, and Healing. Lauren Modica will perform Love, written by Michelle Torland.
I wanted a puppy. I was in the 7th grade, but wanted a puppy since I could talk, and the neighbor kids where we lived when I was younger owned this beautiful golden retriever named Taffy, and I remember peering through the holes in the 8x2 plywood fencing that separated our yards, watching the kids run and laugh and play with Taffy. And I remember one night looking out my upstairs bedroom window into Dennis's room. He was the youngest boy, just a little older than I was. And he was reading to Taffy, who sat idly by, wagging her tail at him. And after then, I remember peeking in on them often. One night, I even remember Dennis storming into the room, upset, landing his head in the pillow and crying. And then Taffy came in shortly after, nudging her nose under his arm, consoling him. Oh, I want that, I thought. I pleaded with my mom for my own dog, a best friend. "What do you want a dog for?" she would always say. And my reply was, "Well, what kid doesn't want a dog?" What I really wanted to say was, I wanted a dog to pay attention to me when I came home and be happy to see me, and I wanted it near when I fell asleep and who I'd know would be there when I woke, but mostly I knew that dogs didn't drink. No, they didn't get drunk like my mom did. Pouring down rain, I ran to find shelter under a tree while walking home from school. And in the distance, I saw what looked to be a stray dog rummaging through a home's garbage cans on the sidewalk. I watched, and then I called to the dog. And the dog ran to me as if it knew me, and then halted as our eyes locked. And I remembered that I had half a sandwich in my backpack from lunch and pulled it out, and the dog came closer and became more at ease, and I began to pet the dog's head, and it was as if I'd heard a sigh of relief come from this animal. Yes, he came home with me. I sneaked him in undetected and lasted about a week before my mother discovered him. And thank goodness for the new boyfriend my mom had at the time. "Let the kid keep the dog. He's kind of cute," I remember him saying. And if not for my mom wanting to impress her temporary love, would she ever have consented for my new friend Manilow to stay? I always fantasized about how my father might look, what he was like. I envisioned him handsome and well-dressed and a great singer, of course, a world traveler, no doubt. And this explained why I didn't see him. I never knew who my father was, and my mother never gave mention of his name. So I convinced myself that my dad was Barry Manilow. Only the best singer of all time, hence the name Manilow. And for nearly 2 years, the bond between Manilow and I continually grew. I told Manilow everything. I laughed with him, and I cried with him, and I even began to heal the wounds from my mother's excessive drinking. I found refuge with Manilow from With his unthreatening way, he made his presence be known to my mother when she went to strike me. Her random beating ceased, and Manilow bared witness to the good and bad in my life and completely understood me. My mother even recognized the love we had for each other, and at times I would catch glimpses of her smiling as she watched Manilow and me. It was one of the few times that I remember my mom smiling back then. After every school day, Manilow would be waiting to greet me, tail wagging at the tree where we first met. And oddly, this day, Manilow wasn't there. So I returned home to find my mother sitting in the back seat of her four-door Rambler with the door open and her head in her hands, and Mom? She looked at me with her eyes bloodshot and swollen, and then she gazed slowly to the right of her, where a white towel laid out on the back seat. Manilow's lifeless body lay under it because Manilow had been hit by a drunk driver who'd swerved into the lawn in front of our house, hitting Manilow and then driving off. And the driver found himself arrested for drunk driving within 2 miles away, but Manilow died instantly. And I was told that my mother lay cradling him for hours, sobbing and praying for God to just bring him back. And that day marked the last day that my mother ever drank again. God's name spelled backwards reads dog.
Wow. I don't know what to say.
Neither do I. It's been a while since I've heard that, but thank you.
Did you think about writing that story before you went to the writer's workshop?
No.
No.
No. This is actually the third workshop that I'd participated with Well Arts. And honestly, with this piece, I came to the conclusion that I actually can write. And with this piece is the only one that I just wrote. I didn't think about it like I had the other pieces. It's definitely a personal story, but not as personal as the other ones had been previously. And I just sat down and wrote.